Percolating. Hey, there we go. Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning into the BAMF podcast. This is your host, Mike Lafferty, and I'm here with you've been a guest a couple times, Norbert, but it's been a year or two. This is Norbert Franz, RPG writer and comic book enthusiast. How you doing, Norbert?
I'm doing good. I had a nice quiet day, really. Um, had a dentist appointment that was early in the morning today. So that went fine, and then I, I I was going to do some shopping, but then I decided to do that tomorrow and did some shopping online. I ordered comics, and yeah, every day I'm working a bit on the translation of icons for that to come out in German eventually.
Oh, awesome. When's that going to happen?
Um, I don't know precisely, but my publisher wants to do a Kickstarter for that in spring, so hopefully that's going to happen in the first quarter 2019. Translation is now about 60% and growing, and yeah, I want to have that finished in March. Um, then the Kickstarter is going to be done by this label called Beyond Affinity,
Okay.
that my friend Andre is doing. And yeah, then yeah, depending on how all of that goes, but we would like to have it out in the summer, you know,
All
certainly
right.
this year. Right.
Cool. All right. That's good to hear. And rounding out our panel is frequent co-host Aid Smith. How you doing, Aid?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. All good.
All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining. So let's talk comics briefly. And like I said before the show started, I've on kind of a tight clock, so we got about 25, 30 minutes. So let's try to keep things fast and fun. Norbert, since you are the guest, do you want to jump in and go first? Talk about 3 or 4 books you've been reading.
Sure, just give you the most recent ones. Um, yeah, I said that before you hit record for tonight. I just read Conan the Barbarian, the old brand new #1 Marvel Comics Conan. And I had heard that was coming out. And funny story is that I know one of my regular comic book shops, basically thanks to Conan books, because I met him at the small local convention, and then he wasn't selling that much that particular afternoon, and I bought like old 1970s issues that he had in a box, just the Conan the Barbarian series from that time, and I got them very cheap, and then we sort of became friends over those books, and then so I basically got a flyer from him and found out where his shop was, and then I got several comics, from that genre. Really, he got me a Kull the Conqueror #1 that he had sitting in a box somewhere, and then I started buying other things from his shop, and then I have this growing sword and sorcery collection, and then in the last part of 2018, it was announced that Conan had now basically concluded his run, with Dark Horse, and was going to be published by Marvel again. Yeah, and they launched the book. It officially came out January. Let me see who the artist is on this.
Is that Mahmoud A. Azar?
Yeah, right. Okay, now. Okay, can see it on Comixology at this point. Let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Let's see. Anyway, I'm showing the artist as Mahmoud A. Ezra, and the cover was by Ised Ribic, written by Jason Aaron.
The regular cover, probably, because I saw that did about 16 cover versions.
Yeah, of course it's Marvel, so of course they have. You go over alternative covers if you're Marvel. So
all right, now I'm looking at it again. Yeah, funny thing is, I was going to read that, and then I didn't get around it till the very evening I saw Aquaman, and I took the tablet with me to the. Oh, that was the night when I saw Aquaman the second time, and then just before the movie started, I was sitting there with a tablet, and then I read Conan. Anyway, that short story. I mean, this is new, so it didn't use a pre-existing Robert E. Howard story. But I think that there are going to be other comics like that are sort of loosely based on the original stories. Now here we've got the story by Jason Aaron. Mahmoud Azrar is the artist. Matthew Wilson on colors and so on. Now this is something where he encounters a witch. It's called the Weird of the Crimson Witch. And again, this opens with a typical Conan narration. So this is another tale that has passed down through the ages. And the way they set it up is that now for the first time they're going to tell not of the many people that Conan slew in battle, but how he died, right? So this is the pitch, right? It starts it with this picture of King Conan on the throne. This is not just a story of how Conan lived. This is how Conan died.
Well, that gets attention pretty fast.
That's true, right? And then it opens pretty much in mid-action, where he's somewhere in a town that has gladiatorial pit fighting, and he is the local gladiatorial champion, killing people for money, and he's then approached by this very good-looking blonde young woman. And let me check. She congratulates him on his combat success. And then there's some kind of to look it up now. Yeah, so they talk, and she gives him wine, and then they end up in bed together, and then when they're getting down to business here for a bit, and she transforms into this very old, ugly, skeletal witch, and then next thing you know, she draws blood from Conan with her fingernails, and then next thing you know, he's chained to this sacrificial altar, and she is the priestess of some kind of dark goddess, and Conan is meant to be the blood sacrifice. Now that doesn't happen. He breaks the chains. There's some battle here, and and he knocks the witch out. Yada yada, Crom's bloody damn teeth. And then she has this army of skeletal zombie warrior guys who Conan kills, and then he basically defeats that whole sort of witch blood cult, and decapitates the witch, but she's not actually dead, and she's then to return in a later story that seems to be unrelated, but they make it so that years later, there's a big time jump, and years later, Conan is on another battlefield, and he's won the battle. There's bodies everywhere, and he then meets this pair of very young children with a cart, picking up bodies, and yeah, these two blonde, green-eyed children, and let's see, yeah, they tell them that they gather the bodies, for some sort of cult, or their cult, makes something out of human flesh. And then turns out that those two blonde children were serving the same witch that Conan met all those years back in the gladiator town, and she's not really dead, but she's now even more evil. And so this sickly, contorted, like half living, half dead, a lich, pretty much, if you know D&D. And things happen from there. But Conan, okay, Conan does not die, but he gets close to death, in this, and then that goes to the to be continued.
Cool. So, did you enjoy it?
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it. I have a friend over in a Facebook fan group when I talk about sword and sorcery, and he said Conan has grown up. I wasn't sure what he meant by that, but it is a dark, grown-up story, as grown-up as these things get. The art is, I'd say, it's certainly above average art. Yeah, not pulling any punches. So, I mean, I don't often read some super brutal comics, but this one is not pulling punches, I would say. And yeah, I want to keep reading. I told my comic book dealer in Fürth, the one that runs this little shop, that I want to have this on my subscription list now. And I figure at least I'm going to do at least the first 6. If it holds up, want to read that. And
the old Conan books used to have done in one stories, didn't it? So this, did you read any of the Dark Horse? Is it Dark Horse that had the license before, or is it IDW?
Dark Horse, yeah, lots of Dark Horse, and Dark Horse also republished The Savage Sword of Conan.
Yeah,
right.
Because those are the ones I remember that are kind of like literally used to be one-issue stories that just. But there are a lot of those were obviously translations of the old original actual Howard works as well. So,
right, I think this is something that they brought back, in the 2000s, where they said this is now the definitive comic book retelling of Tower of the Elephant, or this is the people of the Black Circle is another one of the original. Yeah, there's some comics in that style. Apparently, this Marvel series is just a regular, like 22-page and to be continued comic book tale. And there's other Conan happening now. There are some reprints that Marvel is doing, some other short stories, and coincidentally, I'm also reading the French album Conan, the Conan the Cimmerian, and that has now been licensed and published by this publisher called Splitter in Germany, and they're getting a lot of the French and Belgium series. Totally different style, and the format is different because you get that hardcover European style album, and I think it's mostly in watercolors and really different art. That they are concentrating on the one and done. It's basically one tale or 2 short stories, two tales in a volume, and it's not chronological. Now this Conan the Barbarian, it's probably going to have various stories, but I would guess that they're doing one tale in 4 or 5 issues, or maybe 2. But this one definitely has a cliffhanger. It's to be continued. And I just made sure when I ordered the book, I said, well, you have to remember that Splitter now has Conan the Cimmerian, Marvel has Conan the Barbarian.
What? That's crazy.
Yes.
Well, also, they've got the Savage Sword of Conan reprint coming out next week, I believe, the hardcover, which is all the original 70s stuff, or at least the good chunk of the 70s stuff, kind of like Dark Horse are doing. So I don't know if it's black and white, because the Dark Horse stuff reprints was black and white. But I know for the price of the new Marvel one, I'm assuming it's color. But then they've also said that they're going to be, this is Conan the Barbarian. There's supposed to be Savage Sword of Conan book coming out at some point. I think February, March time. And then I think they said there was a third one. I don't know if that's Conan the King as well. So theoretically, there's going to be 3 Conan titles, all be put out by Marvel as a monthly.
I didn't realize Conan was back so much.
Well, I suppose I can kind of half understand it because of the sake. Crikey, we got the license back. Let's do something with him. But 3 books? That's interesting. And apparently he also joins the Avengers in a month or 2 as well. There's already a Avengers Conan crossover happening in about March, I think, and Conan may actually become an Avenger.
I think I saw some preview cover of that, just cover art.
Yeah, Scarlet Witch with Conan. Yeah,
it was discussed on Facebook a bit. And of course, among the old school Conan fans, you have a lot of people who say, "Well, don't bring him into the Avengers. This is crap."
Well,
I'm going to tell you that I enjoyed Red Sonja coming to modern day America. It happened last year.
But they also had the classic Red Sonja, Howard the Duck, and Spider-Man crossover, didn't they? Back in the 70s as well, when Marvel were doing Red Sonja books as well. So,
I remember way back in the 70s, there was a Star Trek comic, and they had a 1-issue crossover with the Conan comic.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. I just barely remember it as a kid. I saw it in a comic shop, but
okay, I'm trying to think who was publishing it at that time then, because that seems odd.
I'll Google around and see if I can find it. But
yeah, because DC obviously had the Conan, and Gold Key and DC were the two Star Trek book producers that I can think of going far that back all that way.
It's possible I'm misremembering. Maybe they just had a barbarian who was
some
very
fictitious
similar.
tale you made up in your own mind. It's like, yes, Star Trek Conan, that's it. Wasn't Thunder the Barbarian. You just seem to have kind of mistaken.
I swear I saw it, but I'm googling right now, and it's maybe it's like that genie movie with Shaq that doesn't actually exist, or that the Berenstain Bears is. I can't find it googling it, so maybe I
strange
remember completely. But yeah, I really like these strange crossovers. I don't always enjoy them, but I'm always intrigued by the idea. Like Star Trek Green Lantern crossover was, wow, they had I think 2 miniseries of that. I checked that out.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah. I don't think it was great, but it was there was enough of a curiosity factor. I read like 2 or 3 issues. I am not a big Transformers fan at all, but there was they did a crossover between Star Trek, now the animated Star Trek from the 70s,
yeah,
and Transformers, and they just kind of had to check it out. And it happens just like you think. There's a moment where the Enterprise turns into a giant Transformer. I mean, it's not like hugely entertaining, but it's kind of cool. And Aid, you talk about what comics you're reading, because my kids yelled for me in the other room, so I got to go take care.
Okay, cool, no worries. I'm reading several books at the moment. I'm obviously keeping up with Doomsday Clock from DC, which is slowly ticking along. Seems to be actually more interesting without the Watchmen parts. There's a lot of stuff going on with Legion of Superheroes possibly coming back, and hopefully the JSA, which is kind of really what I want to see it end up with. The last issue that came out had a big thing about Firestorm being effectively tricked or into transforming a load of Russians into glass, which is something he's not supposed to be able to because his powers don't affect organic material. And kind of the Russians using it as a means to kind of effectively pursue other superheroes. And he kind of flies back there with Superman's help to try and turn them back again. And there's a big fight, and Superman starts throwing Russian tanks around and causing an international incident, which is not very good. So that was been pretty decent. Not Identity Crisis. Heroes in Crisis with the Sanctuary and the many characters being killed has been okay, but again, we're 4 issues in, not a lot's happened. Lots of running around with Booster Gold and Harley Quinn, and they've yet to reveal exactly who killed all the superheroes off. And some people say it's the illusion possible seems to be that it's Harley Quinn. Some people seem to think it's Booster Gold. It could be the AI of Sentry itself. It could be someone completely unrelated, like Professor Zoom or something or other. But that was a quick way of getting rid of a lot of, I won't say B-list because Wally West was one of those characters. But
they killed Wally West again?
They killed what? Well, they seem to have killed Wally West. Yes, he's definitely one of the characters that's mentioned as being dead. But there was, I believe, I'm not too sure if it's actually kind of acknowledged in the actual main Flash comic, but it just seemed a shame to kind of bring him back, especially when he's so fundamentally in Rebirth, as being like the kind of like, oh, I remember the past and this is what the problem is, and then kill him off, because surely that kind of also ties in with Doomsday Clock. Doomsday Clock being apparently the point of why there's 10 years missing from DC continuity, and then kind of like Wally West being the one that remembers it, and then kind of killing him off in another book seems very, very unusual. But then again, like they say before, if it's got Crisis in the title, Flash has to die. So it looks like he's the Flash character that dies in Heroes in Crisis. So
I hadn't made that connection per se, but I read the first volume of that. That was also on my tablet recently, and yeah, it was promoted quite a bit. Yeah, the Heroes in Crisis. You know, that was shown on Facebook a lot. And I was aware of that happening, you know, thanks to a few podcasts. And someone else on this one podcast I'm listening to said that it seems slightly confusing, and it was probably not going to be the mainstream, like mainline DC continuity, or there had to be some kind of resolution at the end. You know, you can't kill all the superheroes so quickly.
Hey, I hate to break in. I just got minor crisis here. Can you guys go on without me for a few minutes?
Yeah, go for it. It's cool.
All right, thanks. Just small reactor leak, very small, no problem.
Yeah, no, it's odd because I think the problem they've also got with Doomsday Clock and Heroes in Crisis is they do these 10-issue miniseries, and I know Doomsday Clock got put back because. And I mentioned the JSA and Legion because of Doomsday Clock, and then stuff in Superman happened, so that kind of put a bit of a crimp on stuff. So I get the impression that maybe Heroes in Crisis will finish, and then kind of the rest of the comics continuity will kind of catch up with it eventually and go, oh yeah, Wally died 7 months ago or whatever. Oh yeah, well that's right. So it's one of them weird ones that doesn't seem to again DC are in a weird place at the moment, because they back when New 52 started, they did quite a cool thing with Green Lantern not being in the Justice League, because in his own book he'd been sent to another sector of space or whatever. And apparently, like, now there's a story in the Aquaman core book where Aquaman's forgotten he's Aquaman, but he's also still appearing in the Justice League, probably because there's a film out. So it's when they do these kind of like mini series that don't technically tie into a core book, although I think Heroes in Crisis is going to have a Batman and Flash crossover book at some point. A lot of the other kind of other characters that would be affected by it kind of like rush towards that point, you know, really quickly, rather than kind of just being like, oh, this happened this time. It's like, oh, we need to catch up. So I think Doomsday Clock's going to be the one, because Doomsday Clock was apparently supposed to be set like 2 years into the future, and then kind of the rest of the DC universe was going to catch up with when it finished. So whether or not that'll happen once 12 issues actually comes along, or whether or not, like you say, it'll be like one of these reset buttons where everything's gone back to normal, so you don't really have to worry about the continuity. That's a possibility as well. So
yeah, I was just wondering a bit, because just for example, yeah, I have the Superman book and the Batman book among my regular subscriptions, so I pick them up all the time. but I haven't exactly read them for a bit. They just keep piling up.
Mhm.
Now, suppose I did catch up with all the Superman books and Batman and Robin. I still wouldn't know where exactly the Heroes in Crisis falls in terms of continuity, but it's just something that the big publishers do, because people might just pick up Heroes in Crisis, and they want to have that comfort. They can enjoy the story without that necessarily crossing over into
Yeah.
a dozen other books, right? And yeah, I think I even read Justice League that way for a bit. I mean, there's always an ongoing, running Batman book, and a Robin book and a Superman book and so on, and a Wonder Woman book. And then they all appear together in the Justice League. And I think in recent years, basically, with Rebirth and like this, what universe is this? It's like post Rebirth.
Yes, I think that's what you call it now. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is a little easier actually, compared to when I read those books in the 90s, like early 90s, when I started my collection in English. And then every month I would have an Adventures of Superman and a Man of Steel, and four Superman books.
Mhm.
And then depending on whether or not he was also in the Justice League, because there was a lot of Justice League without Superman.
Yeah.
Then those books would connect and interlock somewhere. And then, of course, there are offshoots of the Justice League. There was Justice League International. And I think now it's slightly easier, with many of the books. When you come in and you know that you want to read strictly Batman, that's easier to do. Or maybe for a bit you only want to read the Batgirl series. That does not overlap so much.
Yeah, they tend to do it quite so often. They did at the beginning of the 52. They obviously did quite a bit. I think, technically speaking, you can probably read the core Batman book, and Detective doesn't affect it. Detective, I think, is the 2 issues of Detective and 2 issues of the Flash is going to be the 2 that cross over with Heroes in Crisis, to kind of, and I assume that's to do with the death of Wally West. I think there's been one Green Arrow, or there's going to be a Green Arrow book coming up as well that's got something to do with it as well. But apart from that, that's it. And obviously, then you had the 2 books, which again I think were Detective and Flash, which were to do with Doomsday Clock crossovers with that kind of stuff. Yeah, I really missed the little triangles they used to have on the Superman books that used to tell you what order to read. I love those. I thought that's tight control of continuity. If you can basically say, read this book first, read this book second, read this third and fourth, and it all kind of makes some sense, absolutely brilliant. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the olden days.
Yeah, because nowadays, like you say, Batman's missing in one, and then he's in the Justice League doing something else. He's in space doing something else. It's like, yeah, these don't tie together. And they were just funny. There was just a news story today saying that apparently DC are now putting out less books per month than they used to do so. Almost 50% of the amount of books they started doing, I think, during the new, like not the new 52, but kind of when they kind of gradually crawled up. But I quite like that. I like the idea of having. I'd rather see a slightly tighter continuity with less books, rather than, hey, here's 9 Batman titles and none of them have got anything to do with anything else. And it's like, where does it all fit in? Go the Deadpool route, when Deadpool was, we'd have 4 Deadpool miniseries ongoing, and it'd be crossover with Spider-Man and Wolverine, and so it's. But
depending on which book you're reading right now in Marvel, the Submariner is either a brooding villain, an anti-hero, or a hero. In Avengers right now, he's a full-on bad guy. But
yeah, it's funny. I was also thinking about this recently when they announced the what's it? Not the War of the Kings, whatever the new next Marvel event's going to be called. The with Asgard attacking War of the Realms. and they like announced there's a Core Realms book, and then there's a Punisher miniseries and an X-Men miniseries, and it's like. Well, I remember when Inferno came out, and there was like the main X-Men book had the main story, and then because it was set in New York City, you had like 3 issues of Daredevil, 3 issues of Spider-Man, and that was really cool because it kind of like it affected their characters, and they were part of the story. But you didn't have to do a miniseries. You didn't have to pick another Spider-Man book up. You just bought the new Spider-Man book. Now, the opposite thing is that is some people would go, well, I don't want my story interrupted by Inferno. I just want to continue reading Spider-Man books. So it's kind of like there's a 50-50 kind of sway to either direction. You either print books that literally, if you only want to read War of the Realms, then you just buy everything with War of the Realms on the front of it. If you just want it to, you don't want to buy any more books, those crossovers could be contained within the core books. Like there's a kind of a weird thing that either way is a kind of like a good way, but also has some negatives as well.
Oh, speaking of Marvel, and continuity problems, maybe you can answer this. I was actually wondering, does any of you have the trade paperback book of the Spider-Verse?
What, the original one?
Just the Spider-Verse that came out a few years ago.
Yes, I got the hardcover of that. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because I just noticed that has terrible customer reviews when you look it up on Amazon, for example. Because I enjoyed that movie, Into the Spider-Verse. It's now Academy Award nominated. That's news that came out. And then a few days later, I was listening to this podcast. It's I think it's a British podcast called Journey into Misery.
Oh, okay.
It's a podcast of a guy explaining comic book plots and characters to his friend or girlfriend, I believe. And it's always the guy talking, to one listener. There's this poor woman, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a shtick of that podcast. And I was listening to the episode, which was just the Spider-Verse, that whole cycle. And then I said, okay, this is something I would like to read myself, just the whole thing. And first of all, I had to find out whether there was, a collected edition, and there is one. You can buy a hardcover or softcover, and it has such terrible customer comments. A lot of people didn't like the order that the stories were presented. That this is the most confusing Marvel paperback that they got. And it seemed a bit messy or confusing.
From what I can remember, because I bought it as a hardcover because I wanted to read it, and I never read the Spider-Man books. I just knew they're kind of going on. From what I can remember, they put them into issue order, so you get like the first so many issues of Superior Spider-Man, whatever. Then you get Thingy, and then you get the Tales of the Spider-Verse. So some of them kind of do seem out of sequence because it will refer to stuff that's in like a later book, especially the Tales of the Spider-Verse one, because some of those are just like literally, let's do a remember that Spider-Man from that TV show or that comic? Well, here's a short 3-page story about him, and then he dies, or it doesn't, whatever. That's it, and that they kind of follow that sequence. But I think it resolves itself kind of like you don't kind of get to the end of the story in like Amazing Spider-Man, and then there's 6 more issues of another book afterwards. I do think they kind of do a fairly good job of doing it, but there is a lot of to and fro in between different art styles and different books but it does seem to tie together okay. But then I believe there's a companion book which actually collected the Into the Spider-Verse miniseries where they introduced Spider-Gwen, so there's that as well, and I don't think that's included in this hardcover.
All right.
I'm one of those strange situations where the movie is actually just way better than the book.
Well, yeah, also the movie's only got 4 Spider-Men in it, so they can get away with not having 33 Spider-Men in it. They don't have to worry about having every single Spider-Man ever referenced in it. But it was okay. It was pretty cool. I thought it was good. It was interestingly enough that when they announced the kind of like the sequel, effectively going on soonish or recently, the Venomverse, they did another thing. It's like, well, if they do a hardcover, maybe I'll look at that as well. So it wasn't terrible. It was, but there is a bit of remember where you got to in this point, because in 6 issues time they'll refer to that, and it wouldn't have happened yet, but it will happen later, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, that crossover comic had all the weird Spider-Man, all the Spider-Man that weren't even people. There was Spider Car and things like that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I was wondering, have you ever seen like full episodes of the Japanese 1978 Spider-Man live action series?
No, see, I've only ever seen the opening credits. I've never seen actually anything. Yeah, anything past the opener. Yeah,
that's the one with the giant robot, right?
Yeah, the giant robot. Yeah.
The giant robot. Yeah. What's it? Leopardon, or something like that. It's a Power Ranger style sort of what they call it, the henshin hero, like Japanese television superhero 70s show, and I got very lucky with that because that was not widely available. It was sort of an internet joke, that some people brought up, but at one point, to Japanese audiences, that was their Spider-Man, and there was this weird show. What was it? It's an internet channel, and I hope it still exists. And then the year before last, it was one particular day where I happened to be at home, and then it was an anniversary of some kind, or it was some holiday, and then they said, well, for the occasion, on their web channel, they're going to show like I think 10 episodes or a dozen episodes with subtitles of the 1978 Spider-Man. Yeah, and sure enough, I stayed at home to watch that. And it's got the craziest sort of plots. It's almost unrelated to American Marvel Comics Spider-Man. Yeah, of course, this is an all Japanese cast, and it's got that kind of Power Rangers martial arts fighting and weird effects. It's got talking animals, and aliens that turn into animals, and there's an episode where someone is followed by a cat. The cat is a space alien, and the next episode, a frog is a space alien or something. So they're always being spied on. Yeah, and there's car chases and car fights, and of course the robot, right? The giant robot.
I kind of wish that they would option every American comic book now and do a Japanese giant robot TV show version of it now, because that sounds pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised they haven't actually done, because if you've seen that they've got the in the Walmart books, they're doing the crikey, what's it called? It's basically He-Man crossed with DC Heroes. It's like Primal Universe or something or other, something like that.
The Primal Age.
That's the dude. Age videos, that's the one. Yeah.
I was looking at those, on the
internet. Just unusual, and again, it's a toy line, so I can't believe at some point they will not be bringing out a Primal Age trade or even like a book as well, because that just seems to be, you want to support it if it's obviously going to sell toys, so you want to bring it out so it's more available. Just having it available in Walmart surely is not enough to promote an entire toy range. So
true. I mean, you can order them elsewhere also. And I just had a look at the Wave 2. The Wave 2 of action figures is announced for March. American Amazon.com certainly has them. And that first wave had Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and a few more. There's a giant wolf, so a Batman wolf. They can put Batman on.
Yes, it's Ace the Bat Hound as Battle Cat, effectively. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And Joker has a lizard. Joker has a dinosaur with a big grin, the Joker Beast, and they made kind of a mini Castle Grayskull as the Batcave.
Wow.
Right? Wow. And now the second wave is going to include their Superman and Bizarro and Lex Luthor, and they're all done He-Man style. So it's always the same pose at the same height, right? And
Yeah, that kind of
arms
slightly
apart,
squat.
like
Yeah, I
with
know
a,
they're weird.
with a little wider than they are tall, right? Anyway, it's that, and they're called Primal Age. Funko is doing them.
Oh, it's actually
Funko.
Oh, is it Funko doing them?
It's Funko, right?
See, I thought, weirdly enough, I thought it was something. It was some kind of almost like kickback from the Injustice He-Man crossover. Like, because I don't know who does the He-Man figures nowadays. But it's sort of like, hey, you put us in the Injustice books, and we'll make toys for you. It seems to be like a thing because they were so He-Man shaped. So I thought, well, they've got to be made by the same people.
That's yeah. Speaking of interesting crossovers, I am always amazed by the persistence of the He-Man franchise because it's just there's that one cartoon everyone loved from when they were kids, and I mean, every other attempt to start something's kind of been in fits and starts, right?
Yeah, the 2004 version was spectacularly brilliant.
It lasted for like one season, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. same as the Thundercats reboot they did. That was bloody brilliant as well. It's like, yeah, that lasted a season as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying there hasn't been good stuff. I'm just saying that
no, it's weird.
The good stuff doesn't last long.
Why it doesn't hang around? Yeah, no, no. Yeah.
Which I guess you could say.
I walked into this shop. It's mainly a T-shirt shop. It was only last week. There's a chain of stores in Germany called Elbenwald, and that's elf forest, right? And they're named for Lord of the Rings things, because originally they used to do Lords of the Rings related merch, right? So hence the name. And there is an Elbenwald, in Nuremberg, for example. And I just went into the new location, and they used to do Marvel and DC stuff and Doctor Who, Game of Thrones, and some video game related things. And they just added Masters of the Universe. So that there's a wall now of various T-shirts you can buy, and it's all the Filmation He-Man. Well, in fact, it's all Filmation motifs except one Skeletor T-shirt that's a little bit more modern, But it keeps popping up everywhere.
I wonder if there's something to do with. There's definitely something to do with licensing old images. Because I know I've mentioned before that the fact that everything that DC put out licensing in Marvel sometimes as well seems to be that kind of 70s, 80s era Batman. It's always that kind of same. I can't remember the guys, and like kind of like Neil Adams style Batman, rather than anything modern. It's always, if you go buy a T-shirt, it's not 9 out of 10 times it's that version of Batman. It's really odd. It seems to be like it's like, hey, Batman stopped 30 years ago. There's no designs. You don't need to look around for any new designs. This is what Batman looks like.
Yeah, everyone wants that vintage look for the T-shirt.
Yeah,
it seems like.
It's strange. Yeah, very odd. Unless you want the movie version, then you can go for that one as well.
Maybe we should get the license for He-Man to make an RPG because
I'd love it. I'd love He-Man. My nephew is making his way through the first box set of DVDs because we watched one on Netflix, and it's like, oh yeah, I like that. It's like, okay, that's good enough for me.
I did fan adaptations of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe a long time ago for GURPS originally, and then GURPS seemed sort of complicated, and I stopped. And then I tried again with the Fusion system. And I did that, 20 years ago in '99. Those weird, simplified champions rules that they had for Fusion system at one point. And I took it to conventions, let's play some Masters of the Universe. And this was before I met Cynthia, the Spectrum Games. Now, of course, we then did develop that game Cartoon Action Hour, which can handle all the 80s toy properties and the cartoons. And at one point we did seriously try to contact Mattel. Nothing much came of that.
It would have been cool. I know. There's a Fate one called Masters of Umdar, I think it's called.
Yeah, I had a look at that.
which is really nice as well. It's just it's a kind of I know there's like got a pretty decent random creation design. Okay,
I
what
was
are you?
just
You're
about to
half
say, yeah,
robot, half monkey. Off you go.
true, true. Yeah, I flipped through
That
that.
sounds like fun.
I held that in my hands, and I know people who have it and who played it. It's slightly different, but it does have that random
Got a vibe to it.
character.
Yeah.
You're half robot, half giraffe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. That's Mechanic, isn't it, from He-Man? So the job done. So.
I forgot all about Mechanic. That's that's a blast from the past.
Did Fainting Goats do an 80s children cartoon superhero thing?
I think Icons could you could use Masterminds could definitely do it. Icons could definitely do it if you put your mind to it, couldn't you? Easily.
Yeah, I think
we've done Transformers and stuff technically, or transforming robot people in great games. So I can't see why they could be anything He-Man-y.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more about the art choices.
Yeah, I think that's
trying to get the feel.
Yeah, exactly. How do you put forward in imaginative games? Hey, it looks just like this. Yeah, apart from presenting every single thing in art form. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's I complained about how sometime we're in the coffee table edition era of RPGs where everyone wants the books to look amazing, but I mean, a lot of it's packaging and how you make it look and what kind of feel you evoke, and nostalgia is so big with gamers that I think that's how you would go about doing that. But
it could definitely be done though. I think another Galaxy. I mean, it's to a single world and the Icons could definitely pull it off. I think. But again, it's just in RPG terms. It's more to do with having your players in the GM be in the right mindset, because like you go to, okay, we're going to play He-Man, okay, we're using the icon system, okay, great, and then one of your players will create Superman, and you go, well, that's not quite what we're looking at. There's got to be some kind of almost like not necessarily instruction, but there's some kind of framework so that somebody doesn't just go, hey, with these rules I can create a guy that can lift up, I've got He-Man strength, but also I can also fly and teleport and disintegrate people. Everyone has to be in the same kind of mindset to play it.
Well, you gotta have you gotta have a session 0 where you say this is the tone we're going for.
Exactly.
It's not grim and gritty. It's not superheroes. It's
But then again, that's also the same with every superhero game I've ever played. You have an idea of like, okay, right, we're playing a supernatural game, and then somebody creates Iron Man. So, yeah.
Well, hey guys, I would love to talk more, but I've got a hard stop. I have to take the kid to karate practice. So let's wrap it up, and we can hopefully have Norbert back on to talk some more. In the next few weeks, if you're open to it.
Sure, I'd like to. Maybe when Shazam is going to come out.
When's that happening?
April.
Okay, that would be fantastic. All right, wait, Aid, Norbert, thanks for your time. Listeners, my kid's losing his mind. I will talk to you guys later, okay?
Cheers.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a good evening.